Welcome to The Explainer. What if we could actually see the next global financial crisis coming? I'm not talking about gut feelings or some expert's best guess. I mean, what if we could see it through code? Today, we're digging into a really fascinating question. Can artificial intelligence act as an early warning system for a total economic collapse? We're going to break down the research that's putting this wild idea to the test.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. I mean, it sounds like something out of science fiction, doesn't it? But the idea at its core is actually pretty simple. What if an algorithm could just sift through these absolute mountains of financial data and spot those tiny, faint signals of a coming disaster that we humans might just completely miss? To see if this is even possible, you need a real-world test case.
And that brings us to the economy of Zimbabwe. Now, this is a nation that has faced some pretty significant financial volatility, which makes it a really challenging, but honestly a perfect environment to see if an AI can separate the important signals from all the noise.
So here's the backdrop. It's all laid out in the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe's 2025 monetary policy statement. See, after a pretty tough year, the projections for the near future are incredibly ambitious, and that creates this really high-stakes environment for anyone making policy. A 6% rebound? I mean, that is a huge target. And to get there, the central bank has to pull off this delicate balancing act. They have to support all that growth while also keeping a super tight lid on monetary policy to control inflation. It's exactly this kind of tightrope walk that can so often come right before some major financial instability.
So, the big question is, could an AI actually help navigate these treacherous waters? This is really where the research kicks off. With this powerful hypothesis that machine learning can be a game changer, that it can serve as a powerful early warning system.
Ultimately, the goal here is to predict and hopefully prevent something called systemic risk. And look, this isn't just about one bank failing. It's about the risk of a domino effect, right? A contagion that can just cascade through the entire financial system and completely crash the real economy for everyday people. So to test this whole idea, the research we're looking at uses a pretty classic scientific method. It starts out broad, with the big established theories of financial risk, and then it narrows things way down to a very specific, data-driven experiment to see if these AI models can actually do a better job than the traditional methods. The AI in this experiment learns through something called supervised learning. So what does that actually mean? Well, think of it this way. Imagine you're showing a student thousands and thousands of flashcards. On one side of the card is a bunch of a bank's financial data. On the other side is the result, healthy, at risk, or in crisis. After seeing enough of these examples, the student, or in our case the AI, it starts to recognize the patterns. It literally teaches itself what a crisis in the making looks like.
All right, so the theory is in place, the models are ready to go. What actually happened when researchers set these algorithms loose on Zimbabwe's real-world banking data?
Now, the researchers didn't just bet on one type of AI. Nope. They unleashed a whole suite of different algorithms. You can see some of their technical names here. Don't worry, you don't need to know what they all mean. Just think of it like a financial forecasting tournament, where each one of these models competed to see which one could most accurately predict banking distress.
And when the results came in, wow, they were pretty fascinating. The performance wasn't just good, it was exceptional, but it also varied a ton. One model, K-nearest neighbor, did okay, respectable, getting it right about 80% of the time, but two others, Decision Tree and XGBoost, they were practically flawless.
This is the whole story, almost 98% accuracy. That means the AI could look at a bank's financial data and correctly figure out its level of systemic risk nearly every single time. It's just a stunning demonstration of AI's potential predictive power in what is a highly complex and volatile situation. So let's zoom out to the global stage for a second, because this incredible power immediately raises an even bigger question. If we have a tool that is this effective, how on earth do we govern it responsibly? And this quote just brilliantly illustrates the tightrope that regulators all over the world are walking right now. How do you possibly create rules that prevent misuse and build public trust without completely crushing the very innovation that could help us prevent the next crisis? It's a tough one. One of the biggest hurdles is what people call the black box problem. With a lot of these complex AI models, we can see the data that goes in and we can see the prediction that comes out, but we can't always see why it made that specific choice. And if an AI is going to flag an entire bank for a potential failure,
you better believe regulators and bankers need to understand its reasoning.
The International Monetary Fund has been super clear about these challenges. And it's not just about the black box. I mean, what if the historical data we feed the AI is already biased? Well, the AI is just going to learn and then amplify that bias. Then you've got new cybersecurity threats to worry about. And here's the real irony. What happens if everyone starts using the same amazing AI? It could create a massive herd mentality, a whole new kind of systemic risk we've never even seen before.
So how do you even start to regulate all this? Well, Europe's AI Act gives us a potential roadmap, and it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, it creates these tiers of risk. An AI that filters your email for spam, that's low risk. We can leave that alone to innovate. But an AI that decides if you get a loan or predicts if a bank will fail, that's high risk, and that would face incredibly strict rules on transparency and oversight.
And here we can see one country's attempt to put these ideas into practice. Malta has created this really flexible framework that's actually mostly voluntary. It encourages companies to adopt best practices, to get certified, but it only makes it mandatory in the most critical sectors. It's really trying to find that perfect balance between safety and innovation.
And all of this brings us to our final critical question. The technology to predict a financial crisis with frankly startling accuracy, it's clearly emerging. The data shows that it works, but it forces us to face a profoundly human dilemma. If an algorithm sounds the alarm, who is ultimately responsible for the consequences? The developer, the regulator, the banker who chooses to listen, or maybe chooses to ignore it? That right there is the conversation we are all just beginning to have.